Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? My name is Tony Rosano, and this is another episode of the world famous, the University Love, the best podcast in 1, 2, 3 galaxies. But, ladies and gentlemen, you and I would just call this show Online Marketing Moves. And we are coming to you live today. Today is Monday, April the 8th, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you today? Everybody, today we are going to talk about something very important. We are going to talk about storytelling. And we are going to, because I watched, as I told you before on this podcast, I used to be big on wrestling. I used to be big on professional wrestling. I used to watch it. Me and my brother, we enjoyed it when we was kids. I stopped watching it. But I told my brother a couple months ago, he told me, he said, man, The Rock is back. And I said, all right, let me check out this this whole thing. And so before we get started, before I walk you down all that path, I just want to say, it's not if I took a stroll. I took a stroll around the store the other day. Took a stroll around the store. I had no intentions on buying anything. I just looked at different products, and every product I thought to myself, what is this? What is the story? There's always a story about why the product was created. There's a story about how the product was created. There's a story about, why should you buy this brand? Why should you buy from these people whoever is selling it, And a lot of times, as we all know, the better the story, the better the product. Because every product, there are some products, there are some products that are like $1, and you don't put a lot of value on the product, but it could be the same. People, it's like clothes. There's a story behind the clothes people buy and why they're so expensive. Some people tell you, this is the finest Italian leather, yada yada yada. But the point of all this is the same. Whenever you are creating a product, whenever you are creating a brand, whenever you are doing anything, you want to tell a great story. You want to tell an awesome story. And I bring up the wonderful world of professional wrestling because last night I didn't watch all of WrestleMania, but last night I watched one match I wanted to see. It was between two guys, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, and it was a great match. And I remember I was watching the match. I was by myself, and I'm sitting there, and I'm I'm caught up in the match. I know wrestling's, it's not on the up and up. It's not, you know, there's not a legit. Hey, this guy pinned this guy. It's a script, and they go by the script. But there's a moment when I'm watching it, and I'm into the story. I've been following the story the last couple months. I'm into the story. Now I finally get to see the match, and I'm watching the match. And about 5-10 minutes into it, I forgot. You forget everything. You forget wrestling, whatever. You forget all of that, and you're watching it. And I'm finding myself. I said, man, I'm enjoying this. I will never watch wrestling like religiously, ever in my life again. But I will say that the story that they told, outside the ring, inside the ring, it was beautiful. And sometimes as I think back, and I was thinking back to some of the best stories when I was a kid, watching wrestling. It it's When I was a kid, I remember um, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. They teamed up. They joined forces, and they became the Mega Powers. And so I got to thinking about all these stories, in wrestling, and how it ties into marketing. And what also got me, I remember a couple of weeks ago I saw there was this product, Liquid Death, and it's a cool. I walk by it every now and then. I see it. And I go, what is? And at first I thought it was like alcohol, and I'm like, what is this Liquid Death? And come to find out, it's like water, But it's cool how they made the can, they make the brand. They're like, hey, this is powerful stuff. And I saw the article that Liquid Death was a valuation to be like $1 billion. I'm thinking, when you create a story and you create marketing, you know, you could take any product and you could turn it from just you know a can of water into something like $1 billion. And that's the power of storytelling. That's the power of marketing. And so this episode, that's what we're gonna talk about. And we're gonna talk quite a while about storytelling. And I'm gonna tie wrestling into storytelling. And I just want you to remember this and take notes. And it's not about, it doesn't have to, it could be compelling. Stories, you could walk, you could go from, I'll tell you a story very quickly. And if I told you I left my house, I left, I was in the Navy. I left the boat at 12 p.m. on a Saturday, and I didn't make it back to the boat until 2 p.m. the next day on a Sunday. I got 26 hours to fill you in on a story that sounds I met Green Day up close and personal, the group. This is all true. I could go this story. I could tell this story. I could lay it out. I could turn this into a movie. That's the power of storytelling. If I just say, hey man, I went, left the boat, had a backpack, left at noon on Saturday, came back, it was 2 p.m. on a Sunday. I remember this day because it's one of the strangest days of my life. And I saw Green Day. They were doing a video shoot. And so I could tell you all that story. And one day I probably will. And we could tell all that. I could make it all exciting because it was exciting. For me, it was another Saturday. But for you, it's exciting. But storytelling is very important. And the better you tell the story, the better off you will be. And so, getting back to this match, I'm caught up in the match. I'm watching. I'm like, ooh, ah. You know, the guys punching each other. And like 1, 2, and I'm like, oh, come on, kick out. And I'm into it. And the story they told, I'm like, this is the great match. And then things start to happen. People come down, people from yesteryear. And it's like, okay. And then, at the end, and I gotta say this because I'm recording it on a Monday morning, so I don't want to actually give it away just in case somebody hasn't watched it. But I'm watching, and I'm like, at the end they do the 1, 2, and I'm like, and they pin them, and I'm like, woo, and I'm like, I am fully invested at this point. Okay, and that's the power of storytelling and wrestling over the years. No matter, every now and then I come back because my brother, he loves it. He still watches it, and that's one of our you ever notice like sometimes different people in your life you have different conversations with. I talk, me and my wife, we like to watch Amazing Race, so I talk to her about Amazing Race. You know, Other people. Sometimes I have a cousin. He loves football. He texts me every now and then, talks to me about football. And so for me and my brother, wrestling has always been a part of our lives. And so I just remember there have been some of the best stories, ever told, and it's through wrestling. And I'm always amazed. I'm like, wow, this is what I need to get. I need to become a better storyteller. We can all become better storytellers. And I'm going to tell you a couple stories that if you can't, you should just watch them, just because of the just for the the dramatics, the maybe, will they, won't they, what's gonna happen, how's it gonna happen, what's gonna happen. And as you get older, you know if you watch movies, if you watch enough movies when you get older, it kind of sucks because a lot of times you like, I'm not shocked. You don't want to be like that, but it just happens sometimes. If you watch like action movies, and you're like, the bad guy's probably right in plain sight, and a lot of times it's like, boom, there it goes. I knew it. And it's, it just happens, and that's okay. But you can always get caught up. Don't ever act like you can't get caught up in something because you can. We've all done it. I was caught up yesterday and last night. I was watching. I was very excited, and I remember I haven't been that excited about a wrestling match since. And I will give you another example of storytelling. When The Rock he fought Hulk Hogan, it was 2002, and me and my brother watched it together. And I remember I didn't really see up until the point of like what had been going on, but this was the story told, not really outside the ring. It was like, hey, I'm 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 the new, because The Rock at that time he was like he was the guy, like him and Stone Cold. Like The Rock was the guy at that point in time. He was the guy. And Hulk Hogan, he had been gone from the WWF for a long time, and he came back and he was a bad guy, and that's a whole nother story. But he came back and he was a bad guy. It was Hollywood Hogan, and I remember he was like, we're gonna fight, and I just remember watching it. And if you didn't know anything about wrestling, Hulk Hogan, he had like one of his biggest fights in Toronto, and they was fighting in Toronto. So it's like, Hulk Hogan, Toronto, The Rock, and Hulk Hogan's supposed to be a bad guy. But if you are like me, born in 1979, and you're like, hey man, I grew up a Hulk Hogan fan, forget all the stuff now, forget all the whatever. But the races or whatever, But if you're a child like me and you grew up in the 80s and 90s watching wrestling, then a lot of us were fans of Hulk Hogan. So it's like, I can't really boo Hulk Hogan, man. Can I? And I'm watching the match, and it's like everybody, it was like a mix, because you're like, boo Hulk Hogan, but then you're like, come on, I want to see Hulk win, because you watching it, Hulk Hogan, he's not young no more, he's like in his 40s, later 40s, and you're like, come on, Hulk, let's bring it back one more time, and they fought, and I found myself like, I want The Rock to win, but I don't want Hulk Hogan to get beat up, and and it was one of the best in ring stories. You're watching, and it's like, and you see the transformation, and people like, come on, Hulk, and I remember watching. He did a leg drop, and you're like, come on, Hulk, and you find yourself just engulfed in it, and the story they told in the ring, and by the end, when The Rock beat Hulk Hogan, I'm gonna give away that story. When The Rock he did another rock bottom on Hulk Hogan, you're like, ah man, you know what? Hulk lost, but he put up a heck of a fight. He did good, and me and my brother were like, man, Hulk Hogan, come on, man, come back to the red and red and yellow. I remember I told my brother, I said, man, I wish he need to go back to the red and yellow, man. Forget Hollywood Hogan. He need to go back to being old Hulk Hogan. Come on, say your prayers and do your vitamins. And the story they told was great. Now I remember another wrestling match, another wrestling story. This is a story. It was of Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. Two of my favorite people. And I just remember they teamed up. They were like, "Come on, man, we need to team up. We need to fight." I think Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase. So they teamed up. They were the Mega Powers, and I just remember they tag. They tag teamed at SummerSlam. So it's August, and by the next WrestleMania, they was into it. It was sad. I was sad. I was like, man, I don't know who I'm at the root for Hulk Hogan. Sorry, Macho Man, but they just started doing a plot, and they're like, man, Hulk Hogan been trying to steal my spotlight, because Macho Man was a champion at the time, and they started doing little things like, Hulk Hogan would come to the ring and save Elizabeth, and Macho Man would be looking, and he would be hugging Elizabeth. And I was young then, so I didn't really pay attention. I'm like, man, Hulk Hogan saving Macho Man. And I just remember you could start seeing like now that I'm older and I went back and watched it, you start seeing like little things like Hulk Hogan. He would be holding up Elizabeth, hugging her, saving her, hugging her some more. And I remember by the time they got to February, it was a Saturday night main event, and Macho Man was jealous. He was jealous of Hulk Hogan. Okay, he was jealous, and I remember he walked off. Elizabeth got hurt, and no. Elizabeth got hurt. Hulk Hogan carried her to the back. I remember Macho Man. He fought. He lost. He went back there. He like, man, what you doing, man? Come on, man. He said, nah, man. You trying to steal my girl, man. You know what I'm saying? And he mollywopped Hulk Hogan. He said, boom. He hit him. Hulk Hogan fell. Elizabeth screaming, come on, come on, come on, come on. And I just remember that was a great thing. And then they're like, nah, we against each other now. And Macho Man cut one of the best, funniest promos you could go watch it on YouTube. Just type in Macho Man WrestleMania 5 promo, and he's like, "I hate you, Hulk Hogan," and it's one of the best. It's one of the best like wrestling things you could ever see. It's funny. And another great story that just went on through the years with like Dusty Rhodes and Nature Boy Ric Flair. And I remember I was like 7 or 8 maybe. And by then they wasn't as they would fight every now and then, but it wasn't as competitive. But every now and then, you know, the the Ric Flair would say something smart about Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes would say something about Ric Flair. And I remember when I got old, I went back and I started watching, some old wrestling tapes, and I saw like how they turned on Dusty Rhodes, they locked him up in the cage, and they beat the living, out of Dusty Rhodes, like pummeled him beat him down. And after that, it was they were always like they wasn't like just constantly fighting for years and years, but every now and then they would come back to each other like, hey, I ain't forgot you. I don't like you. You don't like me. We don't like each other. So every now and then they would come back and they would still talk about each other. And that's always like great storytelling. It's the same as Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. They fought in 3 WrestleMania events. So they were not always fighting for like 5 years straight. But now and then they would come back. They would cross paths. There were always something. And it's like, these guys, they don't like each other. They don't trust each other. What can happen when they get into the same, around each other? You never know what's going to happen. And so storytelling is very important. Storytelling is very vital. And when I was watching that match yesterday, I just kept thinking to myself, how great is it when you tell a story and you come to the end and it's all done. You have to say to yourself, man, we've done a great job at telling this story. And so whenever you write or you produce, YouTube videos, you know, always be thinking about, you know, always be thinking, where is this going? Where can I head? Where can I take this, you know, plot? Where can I take this theme? Because when you do podcasts, sometimes like last week, I gave you 2 episodes about multi-level marketing, and every now and then we're going to touch on the subject. It's not going to be every day because that would be, I don't know, kind of nuts. But every now and then I'm going to bring it up, and there's a reason for that. And if you ever, I'll give you an example. If you ever want to write a book, let's say you want to write a book, and you have an idea for a book, and you have it lined out, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna I'm gonna do a few YouTube episodes, And Lord. And you do a few YouTube episodes, or let's say you are recording. You want to do something quick, and you say, "I want to write a book, but I don't want to write the book out, and I want to like record." You can always go and record an episode of your podcast, and then say the next week you say, "Hey, this is part 2. This could be chapter 2. This could be chapter 3," and you can do it that way. And then before you know it, you have your book, and you just get it printed out, have somebody edit it, or you edit it, whatever, and then that could be your book. And so when you want to tell stories, you know, make because last night was a great. I give you a small example. There was a moment to where Roman Reigns, his old partner, he was in a group called the Shield, and his old partner showed up, and he was wearing the full Shield outfit, and it was like a long time ago. I forget how many years ago it was. But one of the things that happened where his old partner, when they was in the group, he hit Roman Reigns in the back with a chair, and this was like 10 years ago. And it's funny. Last night they went back to that. The guy was dressed up. The guy was for to get out the ring or whatever, and Roman Reigns had a chair, and he hit him right in the back. And I thought, hey, old times. And so the storytelling can be subtle like that. The storytelling, it can, when you tell a story, make sure just tell a great story, and a lot of great things can happen. Whether it be your YouTube channel, whether it be, when you're telling the story with the content, with your marketing, with the product you want to sell, just don't take the product. Just like I got a pack of envelopes, right in here I'm looking at some envelopes. If you told a story about how great these envelopes are and why you need these envelopes, you could turn envelopes from a 50-cent product to a $10 product, $20 product. If you say these are the greatest envelopes, guaranteed to not disintegrate into weather, these envelopes was in World War II, yada yada yada. You could tell a story about envelopes, and you can create, and you can make some money selling envelopes. And it's just like this Icy Hot right in front of me. I have Icy Hot. Okay, I have Icy Hot Original Pain Relief Balm. This product, if you think about it, it's pretty boring, Icy Hot. But if you tell people, hey, you wanna play basketball all day long, and you're 40 years old, and wake up the next morning, and voila, no pain, no nothing, no suffering, no nothing. Use Icy Hot, blah 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 blah. Then you can tell a story about Icy Hot and how it helped you do this and do that, and you could take that and run with it, and you can make a lot of money telling a story about Icy Hot. Every product, every service, everything needs a story, And when I say story, I don't mean you make it up, but what I mean is you tell a story, why they need it, how they need it, what do they need it for, why should they buy it, what should they buy it from you. There's always a reason behind everything, and when you figure out that telling a story is a way to go, and we all have to tell a story. We all tell a story, We've all told a story. How do you get married? How do you get into relationships? How do you meet people? You tell stories, You they enjoy your stories. You tell them more stories. They you go out for another date. You meet them again. You get to tell them more stories. They like more of your stories. You say, hey, I like you. You like me. Let's date. There's a story behind everything. There's a story behind every relationship. There's a story behind every business. There's a story behind every product. There's a story behind everything. And so I say all that to say, if you think you don't have a story in you, I'm here to tell you you are wrong. Everybody has a story. No matter where you started, I know a lot of people, it doesn't matter if you grew up with money, you grew up without money. A lot of people like to say, you can't really you can't be an entrepreneur if you wasn't you didn't grow up straight up poor, What? What? That's crazy. We all have a story. We all come from somewhere, and whether you want to sell a product, do a service, whether you're selling yourself, use storytelling. Figure out ways to tell a story. We can all get better with that. All right. There's nothing. There's nothing wrong with storytelling. It's great, and when you watch it, you ever watch a great movie and they're telling a great story, you just get caught up in it. The best stories are the ones that you just forget about everything. You're like, let me listen, let me see what's going on. And last night I had that feeling. I was watching, and I said, forget me now, the adult I am. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna enjoy it. I was 10 minutes into it. I said, you know what? Forget all that other stuff, and I was happy, and I cheered, I clapped, and I was like, woohoo! And I also thought to myself at the end, I said, man, this is gonna be a great podcast. And the next couple of days, we're going to talk about wrestling in the podcast. So, boom, there you go. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today. We will be back tomorrow with an all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, thank you for listening. God bless. My name is Tony Rizzano, and it's always, everybody, peace.